This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, true seekers and true crime junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road Jack, Finding the Zodiac. I'd like to welcome to the show today, Lindsay McBrayer.
Hey.
Hey, I'm excited. We're finally here.
I know.
I feel like every time I do a pre-record, I'm so out of whack and then so excited when I come back. I'm not sure I'm not going to stumble over my own words.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. So we are now just going to climb into Nora's diary in it's end of 1995, of course, and it says 1996, stress begins. So I kind of want to remind everybody that the John Benet Ramsey note came to me again from an anonymous person who slipped in, dropped the letter off, made probably some small talk, and was gone and out the door again. And when they dropped that letter off, of course, it looked much like the Zodiac communications in a lot of ways. It had similarities to both the Atlanta, Georgia child killer cases. Many of the different notes that we saw, like the Channel 9 newsletter, there were just so many different communications that the elusive, disguised handwriting was consistent with. And when I got to the third page, I actually found formations of letters that were in fact what I know Jack to write like, and I perceive that to be a misdropping of letters, if you will, because it literally when you're learning to work with disguised handwriting, and especially if it's of any type of length, people will naturally revert at some point in time back to their own handwriting unbeknownst to themselves, because it's very taxing on the brain to keep up a disguise. So when we're working with disguised handwriting, we start at the bottom and work backwards. And in that very last paragraph on John Benet Ramsey's ransom note, we saw some letters that were not consistent with the rest of the formations throughout the letter, and they look much more natural, which I'm sure everybody will agree once we get there. So after examining this handwriting, I took it to Dennis, and I talked with Dennis about it, and he said, "No way, Nanette, you're wrong. Jack could not have been part of this. He was with us in California during Christmas and the holidays, so there's no way he could have done this." So I kind of took that with a grain of salt. Okay, well, maybe there are other people out there that are using some of the formations like Jack. I kind of set it aside, went about my research, looking through more of the belongings, and I stumbled across this 1996 diary of Nora. So on November 11th, we know that Jack takes the family, Charles and Nora, to California for the holidays, because not only is it Thanksgiving, but it's also Charles's birthday. And then, of course, they were to stay all the way through the holiday season, which was kind of strange because with Jack's mom in a care home, he up and leaves when we know he has this kind of perverse love for his mother, where he's constantly back there. He wanted to be the man of the house at one point when his father died, and he wanted to sleep in her bed, was the story that I was told. Now, I don't know how much of that is true, but it kind of shows what they presumed, or at least profiled in the Zodiac cases, that there was a perverse love for his mother.
Yeah.
So why he would up and leave during the holidays of what may potentially be her last holidays on Earth kind of sets a different example for me, right? I mean, you would think that you would want those last minutes, those last moments. And so what we're going to talk about in this story also seems a little odd in the fact that he was willing to take the family out of the state where mom is being, kept in a nursing home, away from her and into California. At the same time, he then picks up and leaves. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So the diary is headed by what 1996 stress begins. Now, she writes November 14th went to California for the holidays and Charles's birthday. On November 24th, it says Charles' 18th birthday, had birthday cake and ice cream for Charles.
I don't know why, but it sounds muffled. I'm not sure if it's just me or.
I don't know. Is that better? Are you not able to hear me?
Yeah, that did it. That helped.
Okay. So Charles's 18th birthday, they had birthday cake on November 24th and ice cream for Charles. Garrett was there at Denny's, and I'm not sure what it says. At Dennis and Joy's. Now on November 27th, 3 days after Charles' birthday, she labels this, Jack had to go back to Texas today. Got a fax from Dolores. Granny wasn't doing so good. She was combative and confused, wasn't herself. Jack was worried about her. He went back. Charles and I stayed in California. So that tells a different story, right? Now we've got a concerned Jack going back to Texas for his mom. But he wasn't a concerned Jack when he left to take the family away for months, not just a couple days to California. His intentions were to stay there all the way through New Year's Eve, basically. So I'm kind of back and forth. And you can also see this green writing that's coming up here on the right-hand side that literally is bleeding through the backside of the paper. We're going to talk a bit about that because there's some dating inconsistencies in this diary. There's some additions. It looks like she literally filled this out after the fact. So I'm not sure how well we can actually trust some of the information that we're seeing, but I just want you guys to know that this was literally, it's like she goes back and writes a week and a half, 2 weeks later, or even in some cases much later, as we're going to see in here, based on the way this is set up and that this is being written. So
and it could be that maybe it's not nefarious because I mean there's been times where I've wrote in my journal when I'm journaling and I forgot a couple of days or like a week because I just like put it off and then I'm like, okay, I got to go back and fill in that. You know what I'm saying?
But are you filling back in or are you just adding to at that point saying, oh, by the way, last week this happened?
But I feel like I usually would say, forgot to notate what happened or what I found out on this week and this day. Cause I always put the dates on my research and stuff. So, I would definitely say something along those lines,
Okay, so it looks to me like she almost even preset some dates in here, if this were the case, because we have the top of the next page of the diary on November 28th of 1996. Then the very next date after that actually says, and I know you're going to see the more predominant overwriting, which is the 16th, but this actually says December 25, 1996. Then she goes back and back. Yes. Then she goes back and backdates it to the 16th. And I don't know that this is her overwriting. I'm assuming that it is. But again, here we see more of this green writing that has been obviously added after the fact. So she is clearly not even finishing consistent thoughts when she writes things down. So it says December 25th. And I want to say personally, if she didn't pre-write the dates, let's say November 28th for Thanksgiving, December 25th, maybe she thought these were the only entries that she'd write in there and she pre-wrote that in, but then came back and corrected it. So I'm giving some leeway here and playing devil's advocate.
That's what I was going to say too. Like she maybe just wrote down the next dates for her next writings.
Right. But nobody confuses December 25th, right?
No.
That's not a date we mess up. That is a date. So we also see over here to the right, December 25th, Christmas Day again. So she wrote down December 25th, then came back and wrote the 16th. It says Jack comes back to California, got sick for 2 weeks, flu and cold. We are staying. Now, the added part after the fact in a different pen color is we are staying till around 1/15/97. So Jack, and this was one of Dennis's reasonings for why he believed that Jack was with him during this whole entire time, is he said that Jack got sick, and he vividly remembers having to move Jack. He actually was evicted from his apartment or his place at this particular point in time, and he and Joy needed to find a new place. And on Christmas Eve, they were forced to move. And he said the first thing he moved was a bed to the new place to put Jack in it, because Jack was too sick to be up and around and moving. So I'm just going to read the portions of this diary, and then we'll take it from there. So on November 28th, Thanksgiving, had dinner at Dennis and Joy's, just the four of us, Charles, me, and Dennis and Joy. Dennis got mad at Joy. Joy went upstairs upset. I went outside upset. Also, a nice dinner ruined. This is a very obviously toxic family, always having some types of issues, or at least the inability to get along. And it doesn't make any sense why. Well, I know Dennis, so.
Well, and I think that also it has to do with so many different things going on at once that it creates conflict.
Right.
Like so and so's got this, and so and so's got this, and so and so's got this, and they're trying to do like it's like chaotic because of everyone wanting to do something or having to do something at this specific time.
Well, and that may be the stress of them being evicted and having to get out, that, everybody is upset and fighting. I don't know when they received the eviction notice. This seems rather early on November 28th for it to be a 30-day notice, and they moved on December 31st, but anything's possible. Then
they did it on Christmas Eve. That's crazy. That was a mean landlord.
Right.
I mean, that's the first thought I had. Like, wow, you can wait till after Christmas.
What's interesting is I'm not even sure that her diary reflects this move, but as we go through it, I'm rereading it basically for the first time in about 10, 11 years. Since the first time I read it and put it into this presentation, I haven't touched it since. But so that has been changed from December 25th to December 16th. Jack comes back to California, got sick for 2 weeks. On December 18th, Dennis and Joy have been evicted. Okay, so now we see when the eviction occurs from the house on Fair Oaks, have to be moved out it says in 5 days, and that would have made it before Christmas.
Yeah,
that have made it to be. See, so there's something really wrong with these date sequences. I'm telling you guys, some of this stuff is not making any sense. So December 22nd, Jack is at the new house. She's properly dated that 5 days forward on the 22nd. Dennis and Joy and Charles been working round the clock, mostly trying to get out of the old house and into the new one. Now, Dennis's recollection was that this occurred on New Year's Eve. So we are now looking at a journal, which she did not do on the dates in which it actually occurred. She went back and filled in a bunch of stuff, then went back and refilled things in and changed dates on stuff. So December 24th, got the tree back up yesterday, was up in the old house, moved it in the car. Geneva's birthday, got her a cake. They came over, went to Connie's, I believe it says, for get together, was good. December 25th, Christmas Day, Dennis, Joy, and Charles gone somewhere this morning. Jack and I went to Dawn's and Eileen's. I visited a while. We couldn't find anything open for dinner, so went home and ate only thing there was to eat in the house, top ramen. Later on, Dennis and Joy and Charles opened. Let's see if I've got that next. No. Okay. I didn't continue after that because I was really focusing in on this particular entry in the diary. But this definitely solidifies that Jack was gone for basically a month from everybody. We see these calls that are happening to Colorado while he's gone. We also see his cell phone tracking we're going to get to here in a minute. So the December 15th rewritten as December 16th. Again, I'm not sure who makes these types of errors. If Nora always wrote in journals, as Dennis said, why did Jack only keep 1993 and 1996, which is a very big, red herring, I guess, if you will, for these cases. Yeah. These prove a move and his place of employment during other unsolved murders, mishaps, and coincidences. There's enough time while he's gone to create the Ramsey ransom note, which many people have agreed was a very lengthy note that likely took some time to actually Right. And I do know that they mentioned that he had started this letter more than once on that pad of paper. They were able to prove that probably with an ESDA machine, which maps out indentations in the paper so that they could actually see that it had been written more than once. We know that Jack returns terribly sick. And then Dennis and Joy makes that move. Dennis recollects, like I said, moving on New Year's Eve. But these entries differ if you played with this, and I say if you played with this. If December 25th was the day that Jack actually returned, which was Christmas Day, and they were given a 5-day notice, that would have them moving out on what day? December 31st.
Yeah. Which would make Dennis's recollection more valid.
And the maths. Yeah. So I'm wondering at what point were these changes done? Was this something somebody else executed? Was this something that she went back and redid? But her recollection and what she wrote down is being written at a time after the fact, obviously based on what we're seeing. So let's see here. So we do still see that the phone bill at this point in time is labeled John W. Terrence with an E instead of an A. And we get to see the phone calls that he's making from his cell phone as he's leaving out of California. So Stockton, California, Bakersfield, California. This is his normal pathway on down to Southern California. And then he exits off to the east. So we also see incoming calls and calls made on a calling card, which I almost forgot about those darn things. But I had to, I'm like, what is CL? These are calling cards that are being used attached to the actual bill or the phone number that Southwestern Bell is handling.
What would he do? Just buy extra minutes?
Well, I think back in the day when you had a calling card, yes, you would put minutes on the calling card.
Okay.
Or if you used and punched in a particular number, it just automatically billed it to that phone bill.
Okay.
So you could get a calling card at the local like liquor store or the 7-Eleven or something like that and put minutes on it. But if you had a valid account with a cellular company, then that calling card number was available for you to use and it just attached it to that bill. And that's what we see going on here. And of course, he's John Terrence on here. We're flip-flopping back and forth. Remember, John Jack. Here is additional, and this is the 30th through the 8th. We see that there are phone calls from the cellular phone that are still reaching out to Texas and calling cards that are calling out to Texas. So it tells me that at least on the 8th of December that Jack is definitely still in Texas. So November and December 1996 activity. I want to see, we had Colorado here, but this looks like time on December 3rd. And again, why keep these cell phone bills? Some of this stuff seems rather ridiculous to have kept for.
Well, if I remember, keeping it is different. But I do remember back in the day, whenever I first got a cell phone, and before you could put your paperless, you could do paperless. They would send you the bill with all this information on it. It was like a big. I remember the packet was like this big,
huge. But why keep this of all things? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It just doesn't. He didn't keep every bill. We do see the ones he kept, but they seem to be, like I said, red herrings that literally plot out his movements and where he's at and what he's doing.
Just in case,
Just in case. And of course, we also see that there are calls still being made to Lacey, Washington, which is where Mary and her family was. So we know that she is not in. I had originally assumed that there was a possibility that the Boulder, Colorado, or the Colorado numbers were associated with a time frame in which Mary's husband, Rick, was incarcerated in Colorado, in which case she moved to Colorado. So I thought, oh, well, there's a chance that he could have been dialing them there. But you've now settled that for us with your research on the phone numbers. And by seeing that Lacey, Washington is still being called and knowing that that's where A, Mary was, B, where Nora was sent to when Jack went back home to take care of mom in her final months or year or whatever it was, that they are still currently in Washington. Then we see this bill on 12/10 of 96, which is paid by Jack. He writes the date 12/10/1996, which means he is at least still in Texas as of 12/10/1996. And this is to the Nelda Street address. Why he's not staying in mom's house, I don't know. I don't know if he sold it after he got the power of attorney. I don't know why he's in any place other than where his mom was living before she went into the home either.
Yeah.
The Southwestern Bell, why did I have this here? 12/3 of 96. So we have monthly charges and roaming charges. So obviously he is not in his local college. Yeah, we used to have roaming charges on our cell phones. So if you
I
went
remember
from one
those.
town to the
It was like it would do the roaming if you're like in a rural area where there's wasn't
or out of the area, because before there was like specific areas in which your cell phone was good in. It wasn't like it was all of California, and you would get roaming charges if you were out of that area. So on December 25th of 1996, John Benet Ramsey is found dead in her family home in Boulder, Colorado. We're going to talk first about hers, and then I want to make a quick comparison to something I do believe Jack is involved with, and that is the murder of Degnan in 1946, which 1996 is almost a 50-year anniversary. And I know that we've made some coincidences with 100-year anniversaries, like with Lincoln and some other assassinations and things like that. But I just find this to be super coincidental that it is also revolving around what I believe is politics and bad people. And again, same with the John Benet Ramsey case. So John Benet Ramsey was 6 years old. She was strangled with a tourniquet using a broken handle of a paintbrush. The brush portion was found in Patsy's art supply tub, but the bottom third of the paintbrush was never found. So was this taken as a trophy? And if it was never found, if she hadn't explained that it had already been broken and that piece was gone somewhere, I think we would have heard about that. That would have been she knew that paintbrush was broken. That's why she tossed it into the basement. And then the culprit, used another third of it and left the other third behind. But they're just stating outright that the bottom third of that paintbrush was never found, as if it should have been. Mm-hmm. She had been beaten on the head, half dressed. The underwear that she was wearing were too big. She had ligatures on her wrist. There are claims that she was sexually violated with the object or the paintbrush, or at least a portion of it. They had found pineapple in her stomach and a bowl of fruit left in the kitchen. Glass with a tea bag found in it. And mind you, the Ramseys indicated they didn't drink tea. So whoever was there had themselves a glass of tea. And by all means, I found out much later that one of Jack's favorite drinks was tea. Suspects spent time in the home previous to Ramsey's return. The ransom note was found on the back stairwell leading up from the kitchen area, and the body was found in the basement. There were shoe prints that were obtained, a suitcase found next to a broken window at the basement level. Suspect knew personal information about the Ramseys. A Sharpie pen that was used was older and obsolete than the rest of them found in a cup. So evidently, the notepad itself and the Sharpie pen were perceived to have been those of Patsy Ramsey's, which was one of the reasons they attempted to blame her. But if somebody had spent any amount of time in her house, there was also a break-in in the Charlevoix, Michigan house in which items like a horse rope and other things were found in John Benet Ramsey's room at that home, which that could have been where they had taken the notepad or the Sharpie pen. Either way, the pen that was found to be used on this ransom note was older and obsolete, but found in a cup of new Sharpie pens. So it could have been taken as an older, obsolete pen from the Charlevoix house and then dropped at.
And is that that's the little girl that she went to dance class with?
Who's that?
There was another break-in of a little girl in that area that she went to dance class with. Is that the same residence?
In Charlevoix?
Oh, no.
Charlevoix, Michigan. Colorado. All right. So early on in the presentation, I put forth a picture that was in Jack's belongings, and it's him driving down the highway. And in the picture, the frame that he took of a billboard that mentions the nuclear power plant in Charlevoix, Michigan.
Oh,
Charlotte,
wow.
Michigan is the second home of John Ramsey.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So you see my connection there. Why is he keeping
Yeah.
a picture of a nuclear power plant board? And it's not time consistent with when he was. So the picture was color. It was all the things that were much newer than the 1962-63 time that we know he spent in General Electric in San Jose's nuclear power plant, because we see those pictures professionally taken by probably some of the top photographers, because they were doing basically a memento of congratulating Jack for having created the water waste machine for nuclear waste, and that they had patented it. So Jack had written on the back that they patented that in 1962-63. Clearly black and white photos, not consistent with this color photo of the Charlevoix, Michigan that we found. So we have that connection to Charlevoix, which again, why this picture? Why this billboard?
Yeah.
And so let's see. And then the house in Charlevoix, Michigan was broken into, and there were items left there that did not belong to the family and was not recognized. And one of those happened to be like a lasso, a horse rope. And then I'm not sure what other things. It's been so long since I actually reviewed this case. And Terry Batcher, unfortunately, lost his right to be on the show, but he knows more about this case than anybody. So some of the things on here are information that he had given me during that time, and maybe we'll come across that. So
Yeah.
the letter was written on a notepad found in the Ramsey home. She was covered in a white blanket, and there was a rabbit left at the grave. And the rabbit issue is brought up because, of course, we have the white rabbit and rabbit issue, jackrabbit, all the things that, coincide with some of the motives and the communications of the Zodiac. Now, Louise Springer.
Well, you didn't mention the window thing. The broken window, but Ramsey said that he had broken it because he got locked out of the house or something, and it had been like that. So he was pretty much claiming that no, that no one got through there. That's old. And then this one investigator's like, oh well, yeah, this is definitely an old break because the cobwebs and blah blah blah, right?
Right. But the window in the picture of the photographs that are found, we're going to see, we see it actually right here. We can see that this window, Greg, go back. We can see that this window is absolutely open. So I would presume that at any point in time that they went down there to take those pictures, and they would have taken those pictures. Forensics teach you to take your pictures on your way in so that you don't disturb or mess anything up. Now, if this picture was taken by law enforcement, that window's wide open and there's a suitcase next to the wall in order to get back up and out. And Lou Smith, one of the detectives.
That's the one I was talking about, yeah.
Yeah. He showed how it was completely possible to not disturb any of those things, climb through that window and get inside. Your only issue would be getting back out. And I suspect that that's why the suitcase, which I believe also had dirt prints on it, was used for the suspect to get back out of the house. Now, one of the things
real quick, since we're on the window, real quick.
Yeah.
So, just so I brought that up because also in the Darla case, in Texas, where they say that she killed her kids and then blah blah blah, like we covered last week, there was also a window found broken, but it was they used a knife to slit the screen. And they say there's no footprints outside the window, and that it was pre-staged like that because they found the fibers of that screen on the knife. So the parallels to this case, it being in 1996,
right?
That one of their little boys was 6. John Benet was 6. There's the numbers there, they use the symbolism, but I just thought that was very weird, a weird parallel. So
I would suppose, and I'm only guessing because
and they also used the weapon inside of a house just as found in John
Benet Ramsey. Yeah. I would think that it'd be highly complicated from the time that Darlie picked up the phone. They said that one of the children would have bled out in 6 minutes or in 8 minutes. And Darlie was on the phone with the 911 for approximately 6 minutes. So they are now accusing her during that time of having ran and stashed the sock, tipped over things over the top of bloody prints, Now you're telling me that they staged a window by cutting that screen in order to make it look like somebody has gotten in. That's a whole lot of cover up going on inside of 6 minutes while she's on the phone with the police department. So I'm in shock. She's bleeding as well. You know, she's near cut to the femoral artery, or not, I'm sorry, to the artery in her neck, and literally stabbed in the arms. And of course, we saw that the bruising that came from that, there had to be a massive amount of blood loss from her. And we see the blood all over the place as she's running around trying to grab towels. So if she's running around trying to grab towels to assist her children, how is she doing all of this cover-up stuff inside of that time frame? It really doesn't make a lot of sense. But another one of the things that I tracked this back to was one of the earlier killings during the Black Dahlia era, in which Louise Springer was sexually assaulted with a branch or a stick from a bottle brush tree. And this cord was used to bind her hands, which is a continued MO. We see this use of clothesline cording. This happens to be a parachute cord. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But as you go through, you see that the MOs are just so similar. And now let's just touch on Degnan real quick. So Suzanne Degnan was killed in 1946. Her father was one of the CEOs of the Price administration, or not a CEO. He was just like a head executive of the Price administration who set pricing on milk and meats and things like that. He had been accused of sending rancid meat to the Indians in their reservations, basically starving them to death. There was this whole black market meat thing going on. There was a lot of politics wrapped around it. We had some butcher out there that was killing somebody. And this 6-year-old
I remember the butcher.
Yeah. This 6-year-old little girl ends up being beheaded, dismembered. Her body parts are deposited in storm drains. And one of those storm drains happened to be on Hollywood Boulevard, which was a cross connection to the bisection done on Black Dahlia, who was found on Degnan, or near Degnan Way in Hollywood. So there's just so many things that are overlapping. Like, what are the chances that these things could be happening unless one person knew all of these different mixes? So there was a ransom note also found for Susan Degnan. She was also a 6-year-old blonde little girl. She was taken from her bedroom window. They indicated that they left a ransom note in her bed, and that ransom note indicated we would give her back if you paid us X amount of money. So here we also have this ransom note with John Benet Ramsey, which says they're asking for a ransom and she'll be returned, but be careful, she may be beheaded. So now they're actually referring to a specific bifurcation or a bisection that was done to Susan Degnan. And then lo and behold, both of these little girls were dead by the time the ransom note was even found. So there was never any intention to ransom them whatsoever. It all makes it look like it's some type of a setup or a cover up in the end. Either way, there was far too many coincidences and the 50-year anniversary of these two murders.
I would like to see both of those ransom notes beside each other.
I talk about lipstick killing cases all the way back in 1945 and 1946, and this is another time frame in which Dennis and the FBI told me, Nanette, you can't place Jack in Chicago, Illinois, simply because the handwriting matches. And then I had to, 3 weeks later, finding from Jack's aunt that Flova had sold the farm in 1944 in Texas and moved to Chicago, Illinois. I can't be that wrong with us then being able to establish the proximity of Jack's mom in Chicago, Illinois, and the happenstances of these murders. The solve that Lauren Swearingham came up with on the writing on the wall in Frances Brown's home, in which case it literally says, you will see more of me, I will see more of them. And it literally says Jack Terrence's name, not over or underusing any amount of letters in that entire message. It all made complete sense. The message looked like it was definitely written in lipstick, but it looked like it had been manipulated a couple times, because you can see the scrub marks where, ooh, I didn't like that. That looks too much like my writing. Let me change that up. So it's erased and then rewritten again. And even then, when he uses these funky letter formations, they are still consistent with some of the known writing. Because again, I tell you people, when you attempt to disguise something, you're merely diving deep into your own imagery, your own perception in your brain, and you're using something that you already use. You just don't think you used it that day. So that's going to be your disguise for now. So on December 26, 1996, the John Benet Ramsey ransom note found in the home. it says we have double letter spell. Now, these are some of the things I notated from it. We have double letter spelling errors that Jack has and the Zodiac has. We have the unusual splitting of words. The cursive Q was a home run hit. I've never seen anybody write the letter Q like this. And we did this during the handwriting examination. Gosh, I don't know, a couple thousand slides ago. Either way, I was showing how the consistency between the way Jack perceives and writes the letter Q in cursive in the middle of printed writing is identical to what we see in this John Benet Ramsey note. And then the writing is like the disguised writing of the Zodiac in the Channel 9 newsletter. Now, we did have Cutie Pie, and I guess I know that Wanted told me at the beginning or the opening of this that Cutie Pie had made a comment on the show before we had even started the show that says Burke did it. And I'm laughing at that now because I actually have that particular comment from YouTube in the presentation today that Burke did it. I want everybody to understand something. The entire Ramsey family was cleared of DNA as early as January of 1997. So less than a month after the daughter's death, DNA had been completed on this family. It did not match the DNA that was found on John Benet Ramsey. Indicates that there is a third-party culpability here. I know everybody wants to say Burke did it. But if he's been cleared, he's been cleared. Now, that went a second step further, even though media was weaponized against the Ramsey family. And for years, even to the detriment of Patsy, who suffered from cancer, I'm sure due to the stress and all of the chaos involved with this. It spent up every last penny they had. General Electric came in and bought John Ramsey's business for pennies on the dollar. And the media helped all of this take place where these people were under scrutiny for so many years that finally in 2008, Mary, which was, I don't recall her last name. Hopefully it'll be in here somewhere. She was the DA of Boulder County. She ran DNA on the Ramseys once again in 2008 with the newer technology and excluded them for a second time. You guys need to stop putting out false narratives like the Burke did it or Dad did it or Mom did it. The Ramsey family has been cleared. And when you look at the process of the way the Zodiac communications and the murders, the high, influential people who've lost children, that there is something else in the making here. You have to consider this third-party culpability. So I'm going to start now by reading this letter so everybody understands what this ransom note said. When he first started to write the ransom note, he wrote Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey, and then decided to change that to just Mr. Ramsey. That's an indication that the hit is at John Ramsey, not at Patsy Ramsey. So it says, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. Sounds a lot like anthrax, guys. We respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and unharmed, and if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attaché to the bank. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. Delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the, and I'm going to pause there for a second because I want to go back through some of these consistencies again. So we have the foreign faction, which we know that the anthrax letters tried to portray that it was a foreign faction that was involved with that biowarfare, when in fact it's found that it is an American who did it. We respect your business, but not the country that it serves. That's a political reference. She is safe and unharmed. Not true. She is dead, just like Degnan, before this ransom note is found. If you want to see her in 1997, she's already dead. So you must follow our instructions to the letter is another Zodiac ploy. You will withdraw $118,000. This was the precise amount of a bonus that John Ramsey was due to receive from his company. The fact that they asked from your account $100,000 will be in $100 bills and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills is kind of like the instruction given in the Susan Degnan note, in which he asked for specific denominations of the ransom money that he was asking for. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attaché. Now, attaché has been used in a couple communications, one of them being the real estate agent during the Black Dahlia stuff. So an attaché is kind of that's a upper, most people would call it a briefcase.
Older phrase.
Older, more, I want it
kind of French or
technical. Well, it's a more technical term. It's like,
it's
you
like
know,
an analogy for it would be like, instead of saying I did a turn, I was at dance today and I did my turns. I was at dance today and I did my pirouettes.
exactly.
Like not many people are gonna know what a pirouette is, but you're gonna know what a turn is. You know,
she did that spinny thing.
Yeah.
And I was going to use kind of the similar analogy with there was dried blood, whereas somebody technical would say it's coagulated blood, right? Like it's a term that's above most people's head, and definitely not a layperson. Definitely shows the intelligence. We also know that there was an attaché reference in the DB Cooper stuff because a briefcase was used. Like there's just so many combining factors here. Now it says, when you get home, we'll put the money in a brown paper bag, call you between, instruct you on delivery. It will be exhausting, advise you to rest. Okay, maybe that's it for this particular.
Well, I pointed one out. So
yes,
make sure you're rested because you'll be exhausted. Or is it the person writing it needs to be rested because he's gonna be exhausted?
Right. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. I do want to state that there was a witness at a bus stop at one point in time that it indicated they saw an older man get onto that bus, and he recognized him as having some type of congenital heart issue. And my interest was piqued on that. Not that I knew that Jack was suffering from it at the time, because I didn't until I discovered the 1996 Diary of Nora, but the man said he recognized the signs of it because he was barrel-chested, which is one of the things that was mentioned about the Zodiac, right? That barrel-chested, got that big, fat, over-bloated stomach, and you've got that very small chest, which is usually a sign of retaining fluids. And he said he was very familiar with congestive heart failure because his father suffered from it and the looks from it. Now we have Jack returning back to California, sick, unable to go anywhere. And I promise you, in Nora's diary, by February, he's in the hospital being diagnosed with congestive heart failure. I cannot make this stuff up.
No.
Now, second page of this ransom note says the word hence. Now, this was one of the words they tried to say, oh, Patsy Ramsey uses it, and she must have been the one that wrote this. That I feel like if they knew that he was about to receive $118,000, they would also know some of the key languages that these individuals used in order to perpetrate a letter that would shed suspicion on the family and keep them so busy that they couldn't concentrate and focus on continuing business. Now, there's, again, on this page, hyphenation, splitting of words. There's lowercase capital M's in the middle of lowercase printing, which that has always been a go-to for me. That's Jack all day long. Speaking
the slant too.
Well,
he tries to like turn it. It's like, but but you can still see that this kind of a direction.
Right word?
Yeah.
Or left word? I see it's kind of going back and forth, and that could be the act of changing the paper or the position of the hand. It talks about speaking. Now, so let me read this. We left off an earlier delivery of the money and hence a earlier pickup of your daughter. Any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate. Now, this is the first place I saw these capital constructed letter M's. There it is. So in the word immediate, yes, we have capital constructed letter M's, which when you look at these other M's that are all kinds of funky over here, they look like your stereotypical lowercase M's with the entrance stroke and then the humps that come in. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this is only, if we got 5 minutes left, girl. This has been so exciting. I'm going so fast, I'm forgetting even what time it is. So yes, in the word immediate, we see the construction, which is kind of a 4-part or it may be a single stroke letter M, but it is definitely a capital construction in the middle of lowercase writing. Result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be denied her remains for proper burial. The two gentlemen watching over your daughter do not particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. So there's that statement that coincides with Susan Degnan actively having been beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in any way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned that we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Oh God, that is such a Zodiac statement. Follow our instructions.
Follow our instructions.
Hold on. I was trying to get
that
to
reminds me of the
I want
anthrax.
to, yeah, exactly. And it says, follow our instructions and you stand 100% chance of getting her back. Something, you and your family are under constant scrutiny. That tells me that they know much about this family, as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only fat cat around, so don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good Southern common sense of yours. It is up to you now, John. Victory, SBTC. Now, to the extent of the victory SBTC, most people took that to mean Subic Bay. And that was something that John Ramsey was involved with. Terry Batcher actually decoded the victory SBTC to a coordinate that actually landed on Burke Avenue in, I believe, in Michigan. So it was very odd the way that came about, his decoding of the location, and that it actually landed on something named Burke, which I don't fully understand it, and I can't repeat.
I don't understand that, but I mean, that's the little boy's name, Burke.
Exactly. And what he did was he gave numeric value to these letters. Mm-hmm. And obviously, like 1 being A, 2 being B, on down the line. And once he was able to, once he was able to pull out the numbers from the letters, that located a coordinate on Burke something in Michigan. So either way, we are down to, well, we still got about 3 minutes. Let me go back here.
Well, I wanted to point out that just real quick, the constant repetition. That's one of the tactics, is repetition. The constant repetition of she dies, she's going to die, dying. It's like it's like over and over, and it's like one of their tactics of repetition. And that just goes to show you that she was already dead. He's telling you without telling you that she's already dead.
It's over disclosure. Yeah, it's over disclosure. 99% chance of not getting her back, leaving a 1% chance of getting her back to a full-on 100%. Like, there was no in between there. I would have said 100% chance she's going to die if you screw up, and a 99% chance you get her back if you do it right. But they did it just in the opposite.
Yep.
All right. Well, so it's, we're at 47:58. So false hope. Yeah, exactly. Definitely false hope. Now, the use of the lowercase y as a capital is just like Jack. That is something that he did. He's familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. This is the same thing that the Zodiac, Scorpion, and most others claim. You're not going to catch me. I've covered my fingerprints. I know how to write differently. All of these things that at the time they understood could be figured out through handwriting. Also, back in this time frame, I want to say up until recently, the major forefathers and document examination said if there was one significant difference in the writing, that you could not make an identification of an author. Now, that goes to say if it's natural handwriting, not if it's disguised. If it's disguised, you anticipate to see different things. You expect to see things not flowing as naturally as it does in the natural handwriting. So I think that was the premise that this author was going by back in that day, because that's the way it was looked at. If I change one letter, They can't identify me. And
Yep.
so we see these different letters that are being disguised, but most of the time they're identical to other communications in similar type of unsolved killings. And I'm sure that these letters didn't come out immediately when they were found. I'm sure that they were withheld to a certain point or to a certain degree in order to, maintain the secrecy of what only the author or the killer would know. So at some point with these being released, we didn't have internet back then, at 96 we did, but we didn't have things like lipstick killers, handwriting and the Atlanta, Georgia child killers at our fingertips. We didn't have the FBI archives and FOIA files where we could go in and find these letters and communications. So this person either had an in with law enforcement as well in order to get it to even imitate it, or we're dealing with one author, guys. All right, that's it. I thank you so much for being here, Lindsay. We're going to pick this up and continue on with this next week. Everybody have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next Friday.
Yes, ma'am. Great show.
Thank you. You definitely.
Oh,